we in Iowa really care deeply about this issue. We are the #1 renewable fuel producing state, ethanol and biodiesel, and we know how important this is to our economy. It's an honor to be able to host this hearing in the Heartland to discuss the renewable fuel standard and gather your comments on the EPA proposal that would lower the volume obligations. Many of you traveled a long distance in some very cold weather to be here from all across the Midwest to join in this policy discussion at this beautiful World Food Prize Borlaug Hall of Fame. Some of you may not know that Norman Borlaug grew up on a farm near Cresco, Iowa. He was a great high school wrestler, and he actually went to the University of Minnesota. And then went on to receive the World Food Prize for what he did in developing strains of wheat to, and is really credited with saving more people from starvation than anywhere. I was in India earlier this year, and he is really honored as almost a patron saint there in India for what he did to prevent starvation in India, and I got a chance to lay a wreath at the statue they have in his honor. Well, and this is a great facility, and I want to thank Ken Quinn for his tireless efforts on behalf of the World Food Prize, which is headquartered in this building, and every year we have a great event in October. And by the way, Norman Borlaug's statue is now going to go in the nation's capital on his 100th birthday coming up in March. So we're very excited about that. Each state gets 2 statues, and our legislature has decided that Norman Borlaug's going to replace Senator Heartland. So we're really honored with that. Let me begin by thanking all the elected officials that have joined us. First of all, I want to say our entire congressional delegation has endorsed and supported this effort. Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds, you've already heard from. Our outstanding Secretary of Agriculture, Bill Northey, Congressman Steve King. Also joining us later will be Congressman Tom Latham and Senator Chuck Grassley, Director of Economic Development Authority, Debbie Durham, Director of Transportation, Paul Trombino, our Director of the Department of Natural Resources, Chuck Gipp. Also, of course, as you've heard, Lieutenant Governor Ellspermann from Indiana, and she gave me the letter that Governor Pence has sent to the EPA. I had a wonderful conversation with Governor Mike Pence, and he is strongly supportive of this. I can also say that Mark Dayton, the governor of Minnesota, feels equally strong about this. I had a great conversation with him and Governor Dalrymple from North Dakota. So we have got great bipartisan support. I had a wonderful conversation with the Democratic senator from our neighboring state of Illinois, who is in a very important position as the majority whip. And I believe that his help also is critically important. And Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota told me about what she and your Commissioner of Agriculture from Minnesota, Frederickson, have been doing up there. So we want to thank all of these states that have been involved, and the Secretaries of Agriculture from Indiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, and South Dakota are all going to be with us today. I want you to know I've been a relentless supporter of biofuels dating back to when I was a freshman legislator in 1973, when we used to call it gasohol. We've come a long way. We don't want to turn back. It's truly incredible to see the progress we made since the 1970s, and what this industry has done for growth and good jobs and renewed farm income and prosperity in our states. It's critically important. With a state that has 92,000 farmers, dozens of thriving international agribusiness companies, and a large variety of bioscience leaders, it's easy to see that the growth is a result of the hard work and the innovation of farmers that have invested their own money in a lot of these ethanol and biodiesel plants. And some of us have gained and some of us have lost. I've invested in some that went broke, but I've invested in some like Lincoln Way that are doing well. But that's the risk you take to invest in something that's important, and it's made a difference. It's made a big difference. There are many benefits that flow from the renewable fuel standard and the use of biofuels, including diversifying our nation's energy portfolio and reducing our dependence on foreign oil. It's been a significant move in the right direction for the first time in recent years. Reducing air pollution, giving consumers more choice at the pump. The Lieutenant Governor talked about how much cheaper ethanol blended fuel is here than regular gasoline. And Iowans choose it overwhelmingly. They have the choice and they choose ethanol blended fuel. I'm proud to say we have a big fleet of E85 vehicles in state government. We started that way back in the 90s when I was governor. Helping grow family farm incomes in rural America is critically important. I was governor when things weren't so good in agriculture, and it's a lot more fun now, and we don't want to go back to the bad old days. In fact, biofuels have enabled value-added opportunities for a variety of biostocks, including corn, soybeans, woody biomass, switchgrass, and even corn stalks, which are being used in these cellulosic ethanol plants. Renewable fuels have created high-paying jobs and rewarding careers right here in the agricultural heartland of America. The EPA's proposal on RFS would have a devastating effect on the growth of job creation. In fact, Des Moines Register's got an article today about a biodiesel plant over in Dubuque County that is being shut down because of the uncertainty created by this. Since the EPA proposal was released, there has been a strong bipartisan opposition from throughout the agricultural heartland of America. I was one of several Midwesterners who traveled to Arlington, Virginia to testify at the EPA's only hearing on this RFS proposal. We asked for one here, right at ground zero in the heartland, and they choose not to do it. That's why we're having this on our own, because we want the message to get across. When we were there, a delegation from here met with EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy to reaffirm our feelings about the negative impact that the administration's proposed rule would have on job creation, agriculture, the environment, and rural America. A bipartisan group of governors also joined me in sending a letter to the EPA advocating for retaining this robust renewable fuel standard. The Iowa legislature, I'm proud to say I requested this in the condition of the state address. 2 days later, unanimously, both houses passed resolutions supporting the renewable fuel standard. We had a rally on another cold day up at Lincoln Way ethanol facility in Nevada, attended by over 300 Iowans, and leaders from other states also came to that facility. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar shared with me that she and Minnesota Agriculture Commissioner Dave Frederickson have toured many of Minnesota's ethanol plants and had great turnouts and heard strong opposition in their state to the EPA's proposal. These efforts show the tremendous importance of the RFS to our nation's agriculture and biofuels industry, and how the EPA proposal would have a damaging effect on jobs and on farm income. The proposed rule by the EPA would have a direct effect on Iowa's 43 ethanol plants and 12 biodiesel plants and scores of facilities all across this agricultural heartland. It's estimated that the EPA proposal would cost 45,000 jobs. We're trying to create jobs, not destroy jobs in this country. Thousands of families would face undue financial hardship and stress. In 2012, during the drought, corn prices went to $8 a bushel, but we all know they've gone back down to about $4 a bushel. I don't think in Washington, D.C. they follow the price of corn. We do. And you know what happened? The price of food didn't go down when the price of corn went down. We know that, and we know that the false information about this food versus fuel thing is just that. It is absolutely wrong, misinformation, and there is virtually no connection between the price of corn and the price of food in the supermarkets. The EPA proposed rule would result in corn prices, at least according to our experts at Iowa State University, dropping below the cost of production. And I was governor when that happened before, and we know what happens. Land values drop, people quit buying farm machinery, we start seeing layoffs in farm machinery manufacturing. It ripples through our entire Midwestern and rural Main Street economy. I was governor during that farm crisis of the 80s, a time that brought incredible hardship and stress to farm families, rural communities, and we closed a lot of banks. I never want to forget what happened, and I never want to return to those bad old days. The EPA should not trigger that kind of a negative downturn in rural America. The EPA... What's ironic is since 2005, when the RFS started, the EPA has been a strong supporter of renewable fuels. Now is not the time to back down and cower to big oil and their money and their lobbying. I see no reason why the EPA should not continue to support the renewable fuel standard, which has been instrumental in reducing our dependency on foreign oil, reducing air pollution, and dramatically improving farm incomes and job opportunities in rural America. The federal government passed in 1990 the Clean Air Act, which required the use of oxygenated fuel in certain parts of the United States. Iowa and other Midwestern states immediately embraced ethanol as the best additive to enhance octane in oxygenated fuel. Unfortunately, the oil companies convinced many areas of the country, East Coast and West Coast primarily, to use another product called MTBE. Why? Because they controlled it and they made it. And you know what happened? It became evident over a number of years that MTBE was causing massive groundwater pollution, and it eventually was banned. At that time, the oil companies said, oh no, ethanol cannot replace MTBE. But they were wrong then. Since MTBE was banned and the RFS was adopted, the use of ethanol has increased steadily since that period of time. Big Oil is delighted that the EPA has recommended weakening the renewable fuel standard, but they're not satisfied. They want to repeal it altogether. And they said that as much at the hearing that was held in Northern Virginia. They're wrong again, just as they were with MTBE. It's time the EPA use common sense and reverse its ill-advised proposed rule that weakens the renewable fuel standard. Critics claim that the RFS has driven more acres into production and increased fertilizer demand. The truth is to the contrary. Fertilizer use has significantly declined in recent decades thanks to improved technology and precision farming. Total cropland planted to corn in the United States in the 1930s was 103 million acres. In 2013, it was 97 million acres. The use of co-products like DDGs has also been important to livestock production, especially here in the Midwest. Big Oil and its allies refuse to acknowledge this quality, that high-protein byproduct goes directly into the food chain. Great cattle feed, but it's also used for other types of animals and livestock. In fact, modern ethanol refinery produces 17.5 pounds of highly valuable DDGs from 1 bushel of corn. This has helped increase cattle feeding numbers in our state in recent years. I believe Big Oil is wrong about the use of higher blends of ethanol, just as they were proven wrong on MTBE and on the fact that ethanol could replace it. The RFS has helped our nation to make steady progress since 2005, and our dependency on foreign oil has dropped from about 60% to about 40%, but the EPA proposal could reverse that progress and that improvement. E15, E85, and blender pumps can be part of achieving this important growth as envisioned by the IRFS from the very beginning. In Iowa, we recently launched a new program called Fueling Our Future. This program, through the use of CMAQ funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation, provides financial incentives for retailers to install blender pumps with higher blends of biofuel at their stations. E30 appears to be the sweet spot for the greatest fuel efficiency. Retailers in Iowa know the importance of biofuels to our state and have installed several blender pumps which result in lower cost ethanol blended fuels for consumers, as the Lieutenant Governor told you. In some cases in Iowa, E85 is selling for anywhere from 50 cents to $1 a gallon less than regular gasoline. And I compare this, my uncle, who's now deceased in California, we used to talk on the phone every week, and the price of gasoline in California is much higher because they don't use ethanol like we do here in the state of Iowa. When consumers have the choice, like they do in Iowa and many other states here in the Midwest, they choose ethanol and biofuels. The oil companies are preventing this fuel choice in many parts of the country, and they're putting the pressure on the retailers not to install blender pumps and not to use E15. Consumers lose and pay a lot more for their fuel because of that. Since the EPA proposal was first released, there has been encouraging studies and data provided that I believe gives the EPA an opportunity to reverse their approach on this proposal, including data that shows that there is more capacity to integrate biofuels in our nation's fuel supply, and data that shows that the RIN activity did not affect the price at the pump. Today, we will have a chance to hear from farmers, business leaders, consumers who embrace choices at the pump, and elected officials who support the benefits of biofuels. The EPA decision will affect their lives and their futures. I know it will have a big impact on this state's economic future and the income of our farmers and our businesses. I urge President Obama, Administrator McCarthy, and the EPA to listen to the people of Iowa and the agricultural heartland of America. The President launched his campaign for president right here and was a supporter of renewable fuels. We need his continued support of a robust and strong renewable fuel standard, just as the EPA has always done in the past. We're not asking them to change policy, we're asked to just stick with what's worked. Thank you all for being here today. This is very important. I believe it's historic and significant, and I think if Norman Borlaug was alive, he would be very proud that it's being held right here in this Borlaug World Food Prize Hall of Laureates. Thank you very much.